If you go to a doctor today and you are concerned about your omega-3, if you're getting sufficient amount, they're going to tell you to take what's called an omega-3 index blood test. It measures how much, it's a pinprick finger stick, and then they take the red blood cells and they measure how much EPA and DHA are in the red blood cells. Okay, the problem with that is that only a few percent is needed for red blood cells. So you have a very minor conversion rate. When you look at humans and comparative analysis in other mammals like dolphins eat 165 times the amount of DHA because that's all they eat. They eat fish every day, right? And lots of it. But their omega-3 index, the amount of DHA that's in their red blood cells, is almost the same as humans. So if they're eating 165 times more DHA and only the same amount is shown in humans who are eating a lot less, why is that? Because their physiology has adapted to remove that DHA from the bloodstream as quickly as possible so it does not cause harm to their heart or other tissues. Now, human beings are physiological herbivores. We know this because of DHA. Carnivores don't convert ALA to EPA or DHA at all, period. They just don't have they don't produce the enzymes at all. Obligate carnivores don't. So we know there's a true physiological difference between the way carnivores and even some omnivores process their ALA, right? So when we look at human beings, we see how much is needed for the brain. All right, so let's start there. When we look at the data, it's called carbon isotope tracing. So they can find out by putting a tracer on the omega-3 DHA that you consume and see how much is actually being used by the brain. They went even further and said, well, how much is being used by the brain in an entire day? And it's about 3 to 4 milligrams. So that's all the brain needs in its turnover of DHA. Now, the misunderstanding of that came from the fact that we looked at brains and it had a whole bunch of DHA in it. Well, so the assumption was we must need a lot of DHA. No, the body only needs a little bit to repair any DHA that has been damaged in the process. So it's called DHA turnover. It's only the small amount that you need. Interestingly, we have about 4,000 milligrams of DHA in the brain, but we only need 4 milligrams per day for the brain to replace the amount that it uses. So that's about 0.1%. When you look at how many grams of calcium are in our bones, it's about 11,000 grams. So we don't need that much, right? It's the same thing. And it's the same ratio. About 0.1% is what we need for the calcium turnover for our brains. So all we're doing is replacing something that is already structurally built. You're just patching the network with DHA or with calcium. You don't need 11,000 grams of calcium a day. That would kill you. And you don't need 4,000 milligrams of DHA a day. You only need 0.1% of that just to replace it. So this whole assumption that our brain needs a lot of DHA is simply not true. To be honest, our brain actually uses more omega-6 in the arachidonic acid form than it does DHA, a far more, 6 to 7 times more arachidonic acid. So your brain actually needs more arachidonic acid. Okay. When we look at the enzymes that convert plant ALA down to EPA and then DHA, those same enzymes convert plant LA, linoleic acid, down to arachidonic acid that's needed by our brain. So it's the same enzymes that do both of them, right? Okay, if it were true that we don't produce enough enzymes to do that conversion to DHA, then it would also be true that you don't convert enough LA to arachidonic acid. We absolutely know that is not true because no one takes preformed arachidonic acid. Well, then why would we think we need to take preformed DHA? It's the same enzymes doing the same conversion. It's just omega 6 or omega 3. No one takes arachidonic acid as a supplement. No one, because we don't need to. Just like we don't need to take DHA. It's the same enzymes doing the conversion. It's silly to think that our body is converting one but not the other. That's just not how the human physiology works.
Well, up until now, the blood test was what supposedly people are using, and like you're saying, that's not a good indicator. The only way to know would be by testing the brain, and who's testing the brain? And so how do we? I mean, you say through these new findings and studies that this is what it's showing. I mean, has there been, or is there a way to test how much DHEA we have stored up in the brain?
Yes, there is cadavers. Obviously, when we die, we can cut open the brains and see what's in there.
Yeah, but while we're alive, unlike the blood, we could do while we're alive. But you can't do it while you're with your brain while you're alive, right?
You can, there are certain scenarios where people have brain surgery while they're still living and they have to remove a piece of their brain. They can measure that.
Sure, sure. But
So,
yeah,
yeah, there are odd circumstances, but doing a larger study to get significance, no, we just don't do that. So we have to rely on what's called carbon isotope system. It's called CISA, CISA, is developed by doctors Adam Metherell and Richard Basnet out of the University of Toronto. They have done some incredible work on finding a new way to measure actually how much is reaching each of the tissues, fat tissues, liver tissue, brain tissue, heart tissue. And that way we can see it because the body is breaking it down and eliminating, and it leaves a fingerprint. So there's different ways we can do it. Blood is not a good indicator. You can have high DHA levels in your blood and not be reaching the brain. That doesn't
sure,
tell you how much goes to the brain.
sure. Where do we come up with the idea that not enough DHEA is a factor of Alzheimer's? Or well, I don't know what the appropriate name is. Brain. What are they calling it today? Not Alzheimer's. They call it something else today, or brain. I don't know. You're not getting enough diseases of what we traditionally called Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah.
So that's one of the forms of dementia. There's
Or
Parkinson's.
dementia in general, all of
Yeah.
these forms. Where do we get the idea that DHEA low had something to do with that?
To be clear, it's DHA. DHEA is a hormone.
DHA, sorry, yes.
um, yeah, so there have been some studies saying that, okay, if you take someone who is insufficient or deficient in total omega-3s, then give them some DHA, actually give them a lot of DHA, and they do see some improvements. The thing is that they were only testing DHA. So now we have new studies that show, well, wait a minute, what if you give people ALA? And ALA is far more abundant. About 90 to 99% of all of the omega 3 that everyone on this planet consumes is omega 3 ALA. EPA and DHA, even if you eat fish, still only makes up a fraction of what the amount of total omega 3. So the problem is, well, they weren't even looking at ALA. They were only looking at EPA and DHA, thinking these were the important ones. But why are you measuring 2 to 3% of our omega 3 intake and saying that's important? Why not measure the 90 to 95%? So when they actually compared if you increase the amount of ALA to sufficient amount, We saw null effects, no effects of DHA, additional DHA, none. So what was happening is you're taking somebody who's deficient in total omega-3 and giving them some, which is DHA. Well, of course, it's going to show some improvement because some is better than nothing. But when you actually increase their omega-3 ALA intake, it nullified the positive effects of DHA because we were already getting enough made by our own body. Our body was converting enough DHA, so additional preformed DHA did not matter.